I love two things, music and people. I don't know which I like better, but I make music because I love people and I love to work with them and I love to play for them and communicate with them on this deepest level, which is the musical level.
On a dit que Berstein rêvait d'embrasser le monde musical dans sa totalité, et il l'a fait. Il a consacré sa vie à faire connaître et à partager avec tous, généreusement, complètement et sans retenue. Leorand Berstein, chef d'un grand charisme, compositeur célèbre, citoyen du monde passionné, le meilleur des professeurs, personnalité exubérante de la télévision, communicateur au pair, et par-dessous tout, il y avait l'aîné, l'âme.
I came from a family that didn't have any particular interest in music. We never had a piano or any musical instrument of any sort in the house. And one glorious day when I was 10 years old, a certain Aunt Clara of mine had to move away from the city of Boston where we lived and didn't know what to do with some of the heavier articles of her furniture, which included a massive carved upright piano. And so this was moved into our house along with some overstuffed chairs. I saw this thing and fell wildly in love with it and have never left it since.
Les parents Berstein émigrent de Russie au début du siècle. Sam Berstein travaille dur pour assurer à sa famille un foyer confortable. Leonard, le premier de 3 enfants, né le 25 août 1918. La radio offre à l'aîné son premier contact avec le monde de la musique. Valse, jazz, air populaire, opéra ou symphonie, l'aîné enchanté dévore tout. Il a 14 ans lorsqu'il assiste à son premier concert symphonique. Son père a eu des billets pour une soirée de bienfaisance donnée au profit de sa communauté. Arthur Fiedler, à la tête des Boston Pops, termine le programme par le boléro de Ravel. Cette musique frappe l'aîné comme un coup de tonnerre.
It's my first orchestra concert. And to hear that piece of orchestration, which is like the Bible of orchestration.
Il est au paradis. Il sent que sa vie vient de changer à tout jamais.
I just knew I wanted to be in music. I wanted to write music, and I needed some way to support myself, other than entering my father's beauty parlor supply business, which he was very eager for me to enter. His concept of a musician that he had brought with him from the Russian ghetto was of what is called a klezmer in Yiddish, which is a little better than a beggar. It's a guy with a clarinet or a violin who wanders around from town to town and picks up a wedding here and a bar mitzvah there. They throw him some kopecks and give him a meal. That was what my father knew to be a musician. And that's what I wanted to be. He was horrified.
Alors, pour payer ses leçons de piano, l'aîné enseigne la musique à des enfants, joue du jazz durant les week-ends et anime un camp de vacances. Sam l'envoie à la prestigieuse Boston Latin School et à Harvard, où il étudie la musique, mais aussi le latin, l'allemand, l'histoire de l'art et Shakespeare. À 20 ans, il est diplômé avec mention. Pourtant, son père refuse toujours d'encourager sa carrière de musicien.
I kept fighting, and there was this summer when I went to New York and tried to get a job and failed to find a job. So I went home at the end of that summer with $4, and on my way home I passed a pawn shop which had a clarinet in the window that was marked $4, and so it was the end of those $4. And I came home with a beaten solo and a clarinet.
Berstein rencontre Dmitri Mitropoulos à la suite de ce qu'il appellera un enchaînement culte de circonstances. Une sorte de dieu, se souvient l'aîné, avec les incroyables rayons X de ses yeux bleus électriques. Délaissant ses examens, Berstein accepte l'invitation du maestro à assister aux répétitions de l'Orchestre symphonique de Boston.
I learned for the first time what a conductor does, how he has to study, and this man was really incredible. He knew everything, and he was incredibly passionate. He had an enormous influence on me. He is in my blood to this day. And I said, what should I do? I'm in despair. And he said, you must be a conductor. I said, a conductor? He said, of course. It's perfectly obvious. How do you know? I know. I said, but I can't conduct. I don't know anything about it. Study with somebody. I said, good, okay. So I called the Juilliard School. Sorry, auditions are over. The class is formed. You're rather late. It's too bad, blah, blah, blah. So I went back to Dmitri and I said, what do I do now? I was absolutely an idiot, you know. I didn't know what to do with myself. And a lot of people had been trying to help me. I knew Aaron Copland by this time. He'd given me a letter to CBS to get a job. I knew Roy Harris. He'd given me a letter to somebody. Bill Schumann had given me a letter. I was armed with letters. I couldn't get a job. So I went back and said, what should I do now? And Dmitri said, well, I hear that Fritz Reiner is giving a course in conducting at Curtis. You might try that. I said, you mean Philadelphia? It seemed to be the other end of the world, but all right. I was such a provincial little Boston boy. So he became my next hero. But mean. He never smiled. And that was a great experience, because what I got from Reiner was, you know, the standard that Reiner had was so incredible that right from the beginning of my study, I knew you just didn't walk up on that box called a podium unless you really knew what you were doing. And there's no two ways about it. You can't sort of know, and you can't wing it, and you can't fake it. There's no way. You have to know, but know, I don't mean just know what the second clarinet is doing. That's peanuts. That's nothing. Know what the composer meant.
En 1940, Berstein apprend que Serge Koussevitzky, directeur du Boston Symphony, va ouvrir Tanglewood, une académie d'été dans les Berkshires. Muni de lettres de recommandation, il se précipite à Boston, bien résolu à voir Koussevitzky.
And that's when I first met him. It was in the green room of Symphony Hall. It was so grand, and I was so shaking. And he said, oh, you study with Fritz Reiner. Very interesting. Then he read the letters, and he said, you know Aaron? And wonderful composer, wonderful. I said by mistake, wonderful, I agreed. Which I thought would eliminate me forever, but didn't register. He suddenly said, but of course I accept you in my class. I didn't have to play the piano, do anything. Just on the basis of letters and, I don't know, personal, because we obviously loved each other on sight. And so it was. He became my father instantly. We loved each other. And till the day he died in my arms. At the first opening exercises, he made a speech about his dream, which he identified as the central line, the constant investigation of what is the ultimate truth of that composition, whether it's by Hindemith, Martinu, or Beethoven, or Haydn, or Mahler. Years later, not so many years later, 8 years later, when he conducted the premiere of My Age of Anxiety, and I was at the piano, he had terrible trouble with the jazz movement, the mask. He couldn't beat it, and I had to have special sessions with him at the piano and show him. I was again teaching him, see, about that. And he said, Leonishka, it is very difficult. You know why? It is not symphonical music. It is a jazz. It is not for a symphony. Why you not write different scherzo? Make different scherzo. I said, it's too late. This is the piece. And it's all bound up with the rest. And I said, it's not really hard. And we went through for hours, and he finally got it. And he said, you know, Lenishka, it is a jazz, but it is a noble jazz.
Le 25 août 1943, jour de ses 25 ans, sa vie fut pleine de ces étranges coïncidences. Berstein rencontre Arthur Rosinski, le nouveau directeur du New York Philharmonic, connu pour être une sorte d'excentrique religieux.
He said, I'm going to need an assistant conductor. And I have been through all the young conductors that I know of in my mind, and I finally asked God, whom shall I take? And God said, take Berstein. And so I called you up, and will you be my assistant? Well, I freaked out. I mean, you know, God, I had recommendations from Aaron Copland, Roy Harris, but I mean, God.
Ce ne fut peut-être pas un miracle, mais ce fut digne d'un scénario de Hollywood. Dimanche 14 novembre 1943. Le légendaire Bruno Walter, malade, ne peut diriger le concert du New York Philharmonic qui doit être retransmis dans tout le pays depuis Carnegie Hall. À sa place, sans répétition, un inconnu de 25 ans entre en scène. Et comme dans un film de Hollywood, en une nuit, Leonard Berstein devient une star. Devant un succès aussi instantané, Sam réalise que Lenny peut vivre dignement de la musique. Soudain, tous les orchestres américains se l'arrachent. Et en 1945, sur recommandation de Koussevitzky, le maire LaGuardia nomme Berstein directeur du New York City Orchestra. Berstein fait ses débuts en Europe dans l'immédiat après-guerre. Il est invité à Prague, Londres, Vienne, Budapest, Paris. L'orchestre a l'air de m'aimer, écrit-il de Munich, malgré 3 handicaps majeurs. J'ai moins de 30 ans, je suis américain, ce qui pour eux signifie inculte, et je suis juif. L'Europe succombe au charme et à la vitalité américaine de Berstein. Il écrit, ils disent qu'il n'y a rien eu de comparable dans une salle à Budapest depuis Toscanini. En Italie, on l'appelle l'autre Léonard. Plus tard, en 1953, prévenu seulement 10 jours plus tôt, Berstein fait ses débuts à la Scala. Il est le premier Américain à y diriger, et c'est un triomphe. En 1947, Berstein est invité à Tel Aviv pour diriger l'Orchestre symphonique de Palestine. Il y retourne en 1948 pour diriger le même orchestre, devenu depuis l'Orchestre philharmonique d'Israël. Cette rencontre avec le jeune pays en guerre pour son indépendance et un orchestre composé de réfugiés juifs européens va engendrer des liens profonds et indissolubles. De retour à New York, Berstein affiche son éclectisme. Il invite Louis Armstrong à interpréter St. Louis Blues en compagnie de musiciens du New York Philharmonic devant 15 000 personnes, parmi lesquels le compositeur W.C. Handy. La carrière américaine de Berstein prend un nouveau tour lorsqu'il est nommé directeur musical du New York Philharmonic. Il est le premier musicien né et formé aux États-Unis à diriger un grand orchestre américain. Il dirigera plus de 1200 représentations, fera plus de 200 enregistrements et redonnera une nouvelle vitalité artistique à l'orchestre. L'un de ses musiciens disait « Berstein possède un charisme unique, magnétisme, magie, on peut appeler ça comme on veut, mais il se passe quelque chose. »
How can I describe to you the magic of the moment of beginning a piece of music at a concert? There is only one possible fraction of a second that feels exactly right for starting. There is a wait while the orchestra readies itself and collects its powers, while the conductor concentrates all his will and force onto the work in hand, while the audience quiets down and the last cough has died away. There is no slight rustle of a program book. The instruments are poised, and bang!
Sa formation artistique libérale et ses racines talmudiques poussent Berstein à tout analyser. Il saisit chaque occasion qui s'offre à lui et dans la tradition philosophique grecque, il le fait en public.
Who are these performers? What do they really do? How can we recognize whether they are gifted or not? Why does one performer excite or satisfy more than another? To put it bluntly, why does one artist earn 10 times the fee of another? What is this art of performing? Isn't that exciting, Maestro Z? Exciting? It's sacrilege. The minute you enlarge those pauses, you are automatically adopting a slower tempo for the first 2 bars. That's simple arithmetic. Then you follow up with a fast tempo in the next 6 bars. So what? Why is that so terrible? My dear colleague, Beethoven has set down 1 tempo mark for the whole movement, allegro. You have already played in 2 tempi in the first 8 bars. You have therefore disobeyed the master's written instructions. That's what's so terrible. I have not disobeyed. I've only taken certain small liberties, perhaps infinitesimal ones if they were to be measured, which satisfy my instinct for tension and release, for tightening and relaxing the tempo. It is not, after all, what do I as conductor want from this music, nor is it even what does Beethoven want, but what is it that I understand Beethoven to have wanted. It is this marriage of gifts that makes the performer so important, the chemical union of the composer's intentions with the gifted performer's understanding of them. Only this union can animate and transform the printed score into an event of consummate importance.
Au milieu des années 60, Berstein, devenu le musicien phare des États-Unis, se rend à Vienne, citadelle conservatrice de la culture européenne, patrie du Philharmonique de Vienne, et particulièrement exigeante avec les chefs invités.
My first contact with the Vienna Philharmonic was as an opera orchestra. It was for Falstaff, which we were doing in '66. And I can never forget that first rehearsal because we were both so nervous. And I remember that I had written down a list of things which I thought would save time, would give me an opening step to ascend to this podium with by pointing out little dynamic changes and little traps and make sure that here 3 bars after so-and-so, the 16th note should have a little line on it, a stress, which will make it a little longer than... I suddenly became conscious that 10 minutes had gone by, and there was a little stirring going on. We hadn't played a note. And I was getting signals from one of the Vorstand, the committee, who are members of the orchestra, saying, come on. I finally got the message, and I said, all right, let's begin. And the story, I like the story from the way they tell it. They still tell it to me. They said, we were very upset at that point. We didn't know what was going to happen. And you gave the downbeat for Falstaff. Boom, da, digga, digga, bum, bum, bum. And they said, we were off and flying by the third bar. There's no catching us, and we knew this was a lifetime relationship.
Morgen. Grüß Gott. Servus. Also wir haben schon ein wunderbarer Falstaff gemacht. Jetzt kommt was anderes. Ich habe eine Entschuldigung zu machen, dass wir Mozart spielen. Und das ist Ihre Musik. Ich glaube, es ist auch meine Musik. Aber es ist viel mehr Ihre Musik. Ich hoffe, dass ich etwas lernen kann von Ihnen. Die Stimmung, die wienerische Stimmung und Phrasierung. Und wenn Sie etwas haben, mir zu sagen, Suggestions, wie sagt man Suggestions? Also, bitte machen Sie das. Ja? Wenn ich etwas nicht traditionell mache, sagen Sie mir das auch. Ich gebe den ganzen Tag. Leichter Käse.
Vienne, la ville de Beethoven et de Bruckner, de Herbert von Karajan et Karl Böhm. À propos de ses relations avec ses collègues viennois, Bernstein observait: ils sont nés dans les royaumes de Mozart, de Wagner et de Strauss, avec tous leurs titres de noblesse. Moi, je suis né dans le giron de Gershwin et de Copland, et mon rang dans le royaume de la musique européenne est en quelque sorte celui de fils adoptif. Pour les Viennois, Böhm était le grand prêtre mozartien, Karajan l'oracle de Beethoven. Dans les années 60, Bernstein se fait le champion de Gustav Mahler en Amérique et enregistre le premier cycle de ses symphonies avec le New York Philharmonic. Et c'est aussi avec Mahler qu'il entame dans les années 70 une collaboration intense avec l'Orchestre Philharmonique de Vienne.
Can you imagine Mahler in his own city, by his own orchestra, so to speak, although there wasn't one person there that was old enough to have been with Mahler. But they were the orchestra, the great Vienna Philharmonic, the great orchestra of a city in which Mahler's music had been banned. They didn't know it. They were prejudiced against it. They thought it was long and blustery and needlessly complicated and heart on sleeve, over emotional, exaggerated. And it showed in the rehearsals. They resisted and resisted to a point where I did finally lose my temper because, in God's name, this was their composer from this city.
Ich weiß wohl, dass dies nur Probe ist. Aber was probieren wir? Die Noten können Sie spielen, das weiß ich. Es ist Mahler, das fehlt. Diese klagende, jedes Tremolo soll Maximum sein. In einer Höhepunkt wie 18 hier. Man kann nicht so spielen. Maler, es geht nicht. Es ist kein Maler. Warum probiert man? Es ist nur die Idee zu haben, aber 17. Bitte, I don't care about your 8 Stunden. Wir arbeiten oder wir arbeiten nicht. Wir werden keinen Maler haben.
I found it very hard going. Scheisse Musik, I would hear whispers of, untranslatable word. Once they found out, however, how marvelous this music was, how incredible the response of the public was to it, they suddenly realized that they had become the vessel, the holy vessel for something holy. The contents were sacred. They were as sacred a bunch of notes as Brahms' symphonies.
La relation entre Berstein et la Philharmonique de Vienne s'approfondit et de leur riche histoire d'amour naissent disques et enregistrements télévisés restés célèbres. La Vienne du vieux monde a fait de Berstein l'un des siens. Et pour déclarer leur affection, les professeurs du Philharmonique apprennent le jazz américain pour leur l'aîné.
It was written for a jazz band, not a symphony orchestra. It was commissioned actually by Woody Herman back in 1949, and he still owes me the money for it because he went bankrupt shortly after I finished the piece, and there was suddenly no Woody Herman orchestra. Benny Goodman turned up and recorded it and played it and saved the piece, otherwise it was just sort of lying there.
Chaque fois qu'il peut, Bernstein revigore ses programmes avec de la musique américaine, Charles Ives ou Gershwin. Une bonne santé musicale nécessite de fréquentes injections de neuf et d'original. Il crée un pont culturel entre les continents. Une voix à double sens. Et sans cesse, il convainc, il séduit, il instruit son public.
It's not every orchestra that dares to go on tour with an all-American program or an all-20th century program. But so far we have been more than satisfied with the audience response. It's been tremendous. They've turned out in huge numbers. And they take it both very seriously and as fun, which they should when it is meant to be fun, as in the Gershwin. And we have been giving numerous encores after each performance, and our big problem, as a matter of fact, is how to stop giving encores and go home to sleep. My dear friends, I do not often begin a concert with spoken words, but this is a special case. When I was met a few days ago at the Munich airport, I was asked by my driver, who turned out to be a passionate music lover, tell me, who is this Charles-Yves? A Frenchman like Yves Montand? Or an Englishman like King Charles II? Or what? And so, after a few more such questions, I began to realize that some explanation would be necessary. One must come to hear Ives' music with some idea of where he stands in the history of American music. Yes, Charles Ives was American, and he stands at the very beginning of what may properly be called American music, at the very beginning of this century.
There are as many sides to American music as there are to the American people. Think of all the races and personalities from all over the globe that make up our country. When we think of that, we can understand why our own folk music is so complicated. We've taken it all in, French, Dutch, German, Scotch, Scandinavian, Italian, and all the rest, and learned it from one another, borrowed it, stolen it, cooked it all up in a melting pot. So what our composers are finally nourished on is a folk music that is probably the richest in the world. And now, as a final example of all this, I want you to hear part of the Third Symphony by Aaron Copland, which has a lot of these American qualities we've been talking about. Jazz rhythms, and wide-open optimism, and wide-open spaces, and the simplicity, and the sentimentality, and a mixture of things from all over the world, a noble fanfare, a hymn, everything. I am proud to turn this podium over to Aaron Copland.
Berstein découvre Aaron Copland en 1937 grâce à ses variations pour piano. Je suis tombé amoureux de ce morceau, follement ardu, disait-il. Et très vite, je l'ai joué partout, quitte à vider les salons.
I had an image of Aaron as a kind of great patriarch with a beard, looking something like Walt Whitman, and of a certain age and fiery, declamatory Old Testament type prophet, because that's all in the music. And what was my amazement when I met him, quite by accident, at Anna Sokolow's debut recital, and next to me was seated, on my right, this 37-year-old, lean, charming, smiling, toothy, happy, affable man. And when he said, "I'm Aaron Copland, how do you do?" I fainted.
L'aîné a toujours été un compositeur. Copland l'a encouragé dans cette voie. Il était, disait Berstein, le contact le plus étroit que j'ai jamais eu avec un professeur de composition. Inspirant avec générosité, partageant avec amour son amour de la musique.
When I would come with my new piece or half of a new piece or an idea for a new piece, and he would say, "Throw it away, it's warmed over Scriabine." Just start all over again, forget it. Or he'd say, "That's good."
Le ballet Fancy Free était bon. Un mélange original de ballet contemporain et classique. 161 représentations durant la seule première année. Jerome Robbins pour la chorégraphie, Berstein pour la musique, c'est la naissance de l'une des collaborations les plus imaginatives du théâtre musical américain. Quelques mois plus tard, en décembre 1944, un autre succès. Berstein et Robbins avec Betty Comden and Adolph Green, On the Town.
Let's go to my place.
Let's go to Cleopatra's Needle.
Let's go to my place.
Let's see Wanamaker's store.
Let's go to my place.
Go to Lindy's, go to Luke
Go
Chowers.
to my place.
Let's see Radio City and Herald Square.
Let's go to my place.
Go to Rubens.
Go to my place.
Go to Macy's.
Go to my place.
The Roxy.
Go to my place.
Royster,
My place.
Gimbel,
My place.
Flat-Eye,
My place.
Building.
My place.
Hip, Bad.
My place. Wait a minute. Let's go.
New York, New York. It's a wonderful town.
Hey, fellas, what's the big rush?
We only got 24 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, we never been here before.
What can happen to you in one day? What do you think you're gonna do?
New York, a wonderful town. The Bronx is up and the Battery's down. The people ride in a hole in the ground. New York, it's a wonderful town.
Le style exubérant et débridé de Berstein s'impose dès ses débuts avec le New York Philharmonic. Tournées, disques, jeux radiophoniques et même un essai à Hollywood. Pour des millions de gens, Berstein est devenu Lenny.
It's a wonderful town.
La diversité de ses talents lui vaut un succès foudroyant à Broadway et la même année, un prix pour sa première symphonie, Jeremiah.
Nature of music is a kind of investigation of the psychological geography of one's insides in a way that no other art can do. Music can do something more than describe what goes on. In other words, it can articulate certain inner motions of the psyche that one goes through every second of life. I've always really been a theater composer. I think even my concert works are really theater works, just in the wrong place. Or in, not perhaps the wrong place, but if you strip them down, you find that they have a theatrical core.
Are you listening, Father? You know who I am. Your image, that stubborn reflection of you that man has shattered, extinguished, banished, and now he runs free to play with his newfound fire. Avid for death, voluptuous, complete, and final death. Lord God of hosts, I call you to account. You let this happen, Lord of hosts. You with your manna, your pillar of fire. You ask for faith. Where is your own? Why have you taken away your rainbow? That pretty bow you tied round your finger to remind you never to forget your promise. For lo, I do set my bow in the cloud, and I will look upon it that I may remember my everlasting covenant. Your covenant! Your bargain with man! Tin God, your bargain is tin! It crumples in my hand. And where is faith now? Yours or mine?
Au cours d'une conférence de presse à Berlin en 1977, Berstein avoue: je suppose que j'écris toujours le même morceau, comme tous les compositeurs. Mais chaque fois, il s'agit d'une nouvelle tentative pour l'écrire autrement, lui donner de nouvelles dimensions ou même acquérir un nouveau vocabulaire. Ce que j'ai écrit durant toute ma vie concerne les affrontements nés de la crise de notre siècle, celle de la foi. Jadis déjà, avec Jeremiah, je me battais avec ce problème. La foi ou la paix, qui se ressentent à la fin de Jeremiah, tiennent plus de réconfort que de la solution. Le réconfort est un moyen d'atteindre la paix, mais pas d'entreprendre un nouveau départ comme le suggère la fin de Masse. En 1952, Berstein achève son premier opéra, Trouble in Tahiti. Il met en musique l'américain courant, sur le rythme du langage parlé. Pour l'action, il situe dans le milieu typique des classes moyennes de banlieue. Il puise dans ses souvenirs d'enfance.
I wrote the main part of Trouble in Tahiti on my honeymoon, which is very komisch because on a honeymoon to write an opera about an unhappy marriage, a marriage which after 10 years has begun to be impossible and they can't talk to each other. They live with screaming silence and silent screaming. That seems very peculiar, but it had nothing to do with my marriage.
How could you say the thing that you did in front of the king? Oh, is it my fault?
I just meant a joke.
Pass me the toast.
You might have said please.
Please understand, I don't mean to
Why
fight.
do you say then?
It's simply not right.
So Sam, so quick would you?
Here we are fighting.
The language you use.
Coffee is burned.
Make it yourself.
Tahiti restera très cher au cœur de Berstein. Son désir d'écrire un véritable opéra américain, exploré mais incomplètement réalisé dans ses comédies musicales pour Broadway, aboutit en 1983 à la suite de Tahiti, A Quiet Place. Comme pour le précédent, les critiques sont mitigées. La musique de Sur les quais d'Elia Kazan fut la seule composition de Berstein pour Hollywood. C'est le film qui compte, disait l'aîné. Le compositeur doit y participer non en tant que compositeur, mais en homme de théâtre. Il doit veiller à ce que sa musique s'intègre à l'atmosphère pour assurer une continuité ou bien ajouter une dimension par l'histoire intérieure qu'elle raconte. Car une musique judicieusement appliquée au film peut lui insuffler la chaleur de sa propre respiration.
Terry? I brought you Joey's jacket. Yours is coming apart. Pigeons.
Yeah, they're nervous. There was a hawk around here before. Eat.
En 1956, Candide, l'aîné savait que dans le théâtre américain, il n'existait aucun précédent à un tel spectacle mélangeant avec éclat différents styles musicaux. À Broadway, c'est d'abord un échec. Mais après de nombreuses révisions, Candide gagne une place de choix dans les opéras et théâtres du monde entier.
Is mirrored in the marriage of Candide and Cunegonde.
Candide and Cunegonde.
Wherefore and hence, therefore and ergo.
Wherefore and hence, therefore and ergo.
All's for the best in this best of all possible worlds.
All's for the best in this best of all possible worlds.
Candide was written as a kind of personal love letter to European music. It's an American's Valentine to Europe. I don't know, do you send Valentines?
Yes, oh yes, yes.
Well, then you know what I'm talking
yes,
about.
Absolutely.
And it is, of course, a pastiche. Of course it's eclectic. That's the whole point of it. I mean, that opening number that we just saw part of is a kind of salute to everything I love in Gilbert and Sullivan, in Offenbach, in Bellini even, the formality of which we take advantage in introducing the number, for example, the absolute Q-ishness of it. Mr. Dr. Pangloss says this is the best of all lands and the best of all possible worlds. Q, music.
West Side Story, un fleuron de Broadway, roman d'Arthur Lawrence, livret de Stephen Sondheim, conception, chorégraphie et direction de Jerome Robbins. La chorégraphie de Robbins et la musique de Berstein électrisent la saison théâtrale new-yorkaise. Les Oscars obtenus par le film 4 ans plus tard rendent le nom de Berstein célèbre dans le monde entier.
it cool, boy. Real cool.
À l'instar de ses maîtres, Serge Koussevitzky en particulier, Berstein se sent profondément tenu de faire partager ses connaissances et son inspiration à la génération suivante. L'enseignement le régénère. Il lui offre, dit-il, la fraîcheur spirituelle qu'apporte le partage de l'expérience musicale avec les jeunes. Tout au long de sa vie, il retournera à Tanglewood et encouragera la fondation d'autres Tanglewood, à Sapporo, Los Angeles et Salzau en Allemagne.
Okay, don't take more time than you need.
Yes,
They've
fine.
got it. Once they've got it, go.
Go. Great. With first,
And Jeffrey,
please.
you do, I know from the other day, you consider the bomb the beginning of
Yes.
the
Yes.
period, right?
Yes.
So all the more reason why you have to give them a sort of upbeat for their 5 notes.
Okay.
Bam, ba, 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 ba. That's why they're not together. See? No. That's not coming together because you're giving it on the beat when they're playing. That's too late.
Okay.
You can't go dum, dum, dum. You have to show them before.
2 before A, please.
That's what conducting's all about, right? Preparing for what's coming.
2 before A, please.
Go before that because, see, when you're playing piano,
Yeah.
they're doing this almost in spite of you. You're not giving them. That's what they need. 3.
Oh, there.
Yes.
Okay. How do I do that without making sure that they don't bump?
You'll do it. Just do it.
Do it. All right.
Do what Daddy tells you. Teaching and learning are not the opposite of each other. They are so intertwined. So when I teach, I learn. When I learn, I teach. There must be something in us and in me that makes me want to continue. And to teach is to believe in continuing. To share with you critical feelings about the past, to try to describe and assess the present, all that implies a firm belief in a future. I think you're all too well-mannered. You've been brought up too well. Trop bien éduqué. The big downbeat in the tutti has to last the full quarter. Really bestial. I mean, this is beastly music brought to the highest, most refined point. So that means Cuba's until the second beat. Do it. That's right. You play ball. We need this. It's primeval, primordial, whatever you want to call it. I mean, these are big, prehistoric memories of Russia. or of the animal kingdom, whatever you want to call it, whether it's a rhinoceros or a buffalo, or just the feeling that one has in the spring sometimes of wanting to be immersed in the earth itself. You know, you've all been through that. These dances are all performed by adolescents, so I guess a lot of you should know what I'm talking about. But think of that. Think of the times. I'm not just wasting words. All the times that we all experience in adolescence, and I remember like yesterday, when you're lying on the ground and it's spring or summer, and you lie down face down on the ground and you want to kiss it. You watch the grass grow. You listen to the grass grow, and you want it just to enfold you. You've all had that experience. You're lying near a tree trunk and you want to take it in your arms. That's what that downbeat is, okay? Too much talk. This old quasi-rabbinical instinct that I have for teaching and explaining and verbalizing suddenly found a real paradise in the whole electronic world of television. I realized what the tremendous power of the media can be in terms of music. There were all these kids there. I never knew what was going to happen with it. The traditional sailing of paper airplanes made out of the program would go sailing through the air, or whether I would really have their attention. And I was amazed at how I had their attention. And there weren't any paper airplanes, which were a great tradition, always had been, for decades at the Philharmonic children's concerts.
Now, what do you think that music's all about? Can you tell me? God. That's just what I thought you'd say. Cowboys, bandits, horses, the Wild West. I know my little daughter, Jamie, who's 5 years old and who's sitting up there, agrees with you. When she heard me play this piece, she said, "Ooh, the Lone Ranger song. Hi-Yo Silver." Well, I hate to disappoint her, and you too. But it really isn't about the Lone Ranger at all. It's about notes. Did you ever feel that you wanted something more than anything else in the world, and you said so, and they said, "No, you can't have it," and you said again, "I want it," and again they said no, and again you said louder and more excited, "I want it," and again louder, "I want it," until it seemed that something would break in your head and there's nothing left to do but cry. Well, that's like this music. Listen. I want it. 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 Finally, something breaks in your head, and you cry. The television shows that I did for adults, mainly the omnibus shows, of which there were 20 odd, I think, were studio shows. They were very carefully scripted, very carefully staged, even though they went out live. We have here painted on the floor a reproduction of the first page of the conductor's score of Beethoven's Fifth. I am amazed every time I look at this music all over again at how simple and strong and right it is, and how economical the music is. Why, every bar in this movement is based in one way or another directly on these four notes.
3 G's and an E flat. What is it about these 3 G's and an E flat, 3/8 notes and a half note, that are so pregnant and so meaningful that a whole symphonic movement can be born of them?
I wrote these 90-minute scripts and had to memorize them and had to go at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, whatever it was on Sunday. And what I was doing was what everybody was watching on television from coast to coast that second. And if I forgot my script, which I often did because I used to be up nights writing, rewriting, cutting, having meetings, and trying to memorize it. And my wife, I remember, would sit there spelling me with friends in reading and memorizing the script. And they would fall asleep, and I'd grab the script out of their hands and do it myself. And just memorize.
What is this recitative anyway? Well, let's suppose that I'm in a musical show whose plot calls upon me to inform my wife that chicken has gone up 3 cents a pound. Now, in an ordinary show, I would simply say to her, "Dear, chicken is up 3 cents a pound," and then my wife would probably burst forth into a lament about the high cost of living. But in an opera, I would sing my line, and so I would have to resort to recitative, let's say in the style of Mozart, like this. "Susanna, I have something terrible to tell you. I've just been talking to the butcher, and he tells me that the price of chicken has gone up 3 cents a pound. Please don't be too depressed, dear." Now, that's not terribly expressive. It's rather close to plain speech, except for an intermittent piano chord, and is not particularly descriptive of my feelings about chicken. But of course, I could get more dramatic in the style of Verdi, something like this.
Gilda, il prezzo di pollo è montato, 3 soldi per grammo.
Now, if Wagner had been concerned with the high price of chicken, he might have put it this way. Das Hühnchen
50 Pfennig das Hund.
But no matter how expressive I get, the function of my recitative is only to set up the situation for my wife's song. In other words, to further the plot through music.
Does it ever alarm you or bother you that success has come to you too easily, too fast?
I don't fail to be modest about my talents. I'm extremely humble about whatever gifts I may have. But I am not modest about the work I do. I work extremely hard and all the time in all kinds of phases of music because there is no aspect of music which doesn't intrigue me and claim me 100%, whether it's performing it or talking about it or writing it. Not necessarily in that order. And I do resent the accusation of an easy success.
Le succès, Koussevitzky le lui avait prédit, mais il pensait qu'il y aurait un obstacle sur sa route, son nom.
Leonard Berstein. It will never be on Carnegie Hall, the poster Leonard Berstein. And in fact, he had my new name all picked out for me. It was to be Leonard S. Burns. My heart sank, my stomach turned over. I did lose a night's sleep over it. I tossed and turned and thought about it, and I reported to him the next morning, "No soap, I'm sorry. I will have to make it with the name Leonard Berstein or not at all."
Dès son enfance, il y avait eu confusion autour de son nom. On l'avait prénommé Louis en l'honneur d'un oncle. Mais à la maison, il était l'aîné. Et à 16 ans, il était parti pour sa ville natale et avait changé son nom légal en Leonard. En 1951, Leonard épouse l'actrice chilienne Felicia Montealegre, après une idylle à rebondissement. Il l'avait rencontrée 5 ans avant au cours d'une soirée donnée par Claudio Arrau, avec lequel elle étudiait le piano. Pour Felicia, elle-même artiste accomplie, Ça n'a pas dû être facile de partager la vie frénétique de Lenny.
It gets very hard to do much more than take care of his household, my husband, children, and acting.
La première fille, Jamie, naît en 1952. En 1955, leur fils, Alexander, et en 1962, Nina. Felicia meurt en 1978 à 56 ans. Le mariage a traversé des épreuves, comme la plupart des mariages. Mais ils ont lutté dur pour le préserver et pour bâtir une vie de famille sur la passion commune, faite de musique et de joie de vivre.
La promessa, non ancora, voglio un salvo condotto onde fuggir dallo stato con lui. Partir d'un cuerpo per sempre, sia l'empia il poder vostro.
Pour l'aîné, l'amour dépassait le cadre de la famille. Il avait un besoin impérieux de contact. Son désir de rapport humain s'exprimait autant dans ses amitiés personnelles que dans son sens de responsabilité vis-à-vis du monde. Il a milité ardemment pour les causes auxquelles il croyait. Désarmement nucléaire, droits de l'homme, éducation, lutte contre le sida et toujours la paix dans le monde. Sa notoriété de musicien lui offrait une plateforme pour exprimer sa passion qui faisait tellement partie de l'année, de l'homme. C'est lui que nous aimions.
That he was not going to take the easy way out. The easy way being to get out of Vietnam, because that would mean leaving the Vietnamese to a certain bloodbath and leaving the country in the clutches of communism. No, sir. That was too easy for him. He was going to take the hard way, which means bluffing, stalling, falsifying issues, falsifying history, and keeping up America's big military image. Well, as we know too well, that's the easy way. We know how easy that is. We've been doing it for years. The hard way is to make democracy work by working for democracy wherever it flourishes in the world. That's what's hard.
The 20th century has been a badly written drama from the very beginning, the opposite of a Greek drama. Act 1, greed and hypocrisy leading to a genocidal world war, then post-war injustice and hysteria, a boom, a crash, totalitarianism. Act 2, greed and hypocrisy leading to a genocidal world war, post-war injustice and hysteria, boom, crash, totalitarianism. Act 3, greed and hysteria. I don't dare continue. And what have been the antidotes? Logical positivism, existentialism, galloping technology, the flight into outer space, the doubting of reality, and overall a well-bred paranoia, most recently on display in the high places of Washington, D.C. And our personal antidotes, making it dope,
subcultures and countercultures, turning on, turning off, marking time and making money, and a rash of new religious movements from Guruism to Billy Grahamism, and a rash of new art movements from concrete poetry to the silences of John Cage. A thaw here, a purge there, and all under the same aegis, the angel of planetary death.
Здравствуйте, друзья. What a stirring occasion this is, and how significant. We two countries have come a long way toward being close together. But we must come even closer together, not only because we two giant nations cannot afford to be unfriendly, but also because it is so natural a thing for us to be close to each other. What is it that makes us so alike in spite of the obvious differences? But we're going to try to answer that question today, at least in part, through music. Perhaps music can tell us some surprising things that we can't find out from books and newspapers. The first thing of all to be said is that Americans and Russians simply love each other's music. Just remember how you Russians loved Gershwin's Porgy and Bess. Вы помните эту прекрасную мелодию от Porgy and Bess? There is something in this Gershwin music of a tragic beauty, of an unashamed emotional candor that is as typically Russian as it is American. We are now going to play for our American television audience the entire huge first movement of the Seventh Symphony by Shostakovich. Now, just before we play it for you now, I would like most humbly and respectfully to welcome to this audience Mr. Shostakovich himself, and I would like to thank him personally and in the name of my country for the wonderful music he has given us. I finished our farewell concert thinking what a thrilling world this could be if only we knew we would never again have to indulge the brutal sin of war-making. Instead of wasting our energies in hostility and our wealth on weaponry, we could send art to the moon, exalt our Pasternaks instead of isolating them. We could feed and house and clothe everyone forever, lick cancer in a week, harness the sun's energy, learn a few languages, talk, travel, grow, and love.
Probably the best I can have done today is to remind you of what you surely knew already, of the life or death importance of living out the will to love. To remind you by my personal confession of success or failure in my own struggle to make love a practiced reality. To remind you by nudging your awareness and my own of the profound moral imperative we share to make our lives into a moment-by-moment, uninterrupted action of bearing witness. If we can pray, let us pray. I know of only two ways to pray. One is to say, thank you, and sing a psalm, gratias agimus, hallelujah. And the other is to pray that our boastfully called divine spark, our pilot light, that little blue flame which has our capacity to love, that little light
may never be extinguished as long as we inhabit this wonderful earth with one another.